Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melissa Caprio.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. How is everybody doing? I hope that you're doing well. Today I have author, yoga teacher, and social entrepreneur Troy Hadeed with me, and he's going to join me here in just a couple of minutes. To all my regulars, thank you so much for joining me. Last week I ran a replay because of the 4th of July. So if you were in the United States, I hope you had a nice 4th. If you're turning into my show for the first time, I want to say welcome. I hope you keep coming back. Just so you know, we put up every show in the archives on Om Times Radio, and I also list every show on my podcast on postcardstotheuniverse.com, so you can listen to any old shows. There's descriptions anytime you want, and future shows, so you can always listen to them. But we do record live, and right now it is 4 p.m., 4:05 p.m. Eastern Time, July 10th here in South Florida. That's where I'm calling from, and I am live. Okay. So quickly, just a little bit about me. I am an artist. I'm an author. I have a book titled Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And I talk all about manifesting in my book and the 30 manifesting stories and postcards. I photographed all of them, and we talk about how to manifest in areas of love and finances and health and our careers and abundance in all those areas, so you can check that out. And what I decided to do was, since my book came out at the end of 2019, right before COVID, I started doing live readings of my book. So you can follow along on those on my social medias, which is postcardstotheuniverse.com. So I'm doing small clips of everybody's story, sharing the postcards, and I just got this thing that I wanted to read from my book. So please, if you're interested, come along, follow along, give me a like, let me know that you're there. I would appreciate it. And I've been re-photographing all the postcards because 5 years have passed now since the book came out, and the way I photograph the postcards has also shifted. As I've grown, so has the work. So you can see those because I do a magical message each week, and I will share an affirmation with the postcard. So like I said, everything is on my social media, and I would love it if you followed me. That would be great. And let me know what you think. And please send me postcards. You can find out how to do that on postcardstotheuniverse.com, how to create one, where to send it, and if you do, let me know that you dropped one in the mail and that I should be expecting one. Okay, let me get to my guest, Troy Hadeed, who has called all the way here from Trinidad, so I'm excited to talk to him. He is an author, he's a social entrepreneur, yoga teacher who is committed to authentic and vulnerable introspection surrounding all aspects of the human experience. Troy believes the ultimate spiritual practice lives within our everyday relationships and that divinity exists in the heart of every individual. He has been practicing and teaching yoga for over 15 years, but has been questioning narratives, dissolving conditioning, and dissecting the human experience for far longer. He lives on the north coast of Trinidad and Tobago, nestled in a community of trees and hummingbirds, but thrives on an active social life, introspection, and some interesting travel choices. When not teaching or writing, he can be found sharing insights through speaking engagements, coffee shop conversations, and casual encounters in the most unexpected places. Troy calls for us to bring more intention to the way we live our lives and acknowledges that our actions, words, and even thoughts change the world. He hopes that if nothing else, his words and life help individuals reconnect to their understanding of God and aid humanity, including himself, in remembering what it means to love. You can find out all about him if you go to his website, TroyHadeed.com. That's TroyHadeed.com. Welcome, Troy. Thanks for being here with me today. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, Melissa. Yeah,
How-
pleasure. That was some intro.
well, I'm
That
glad
was
you
some
made it.
intro.
The universe lined it up so that you could talk to me today because you have a book out and it's titled "It's All About Love." So your name is Love.
Well,
You use love. So why don't you share with us, a little bit
yeah,
about you and your journey?
the book is called My Name is Love. We're not all
Mhm.
that different.
Right.
And it's in a nutshell, the book is reminding us what it means to love, because so often our sense of identity gets in the
Mhm.
way and inhibits our ability to love one another. And
Yes.
from the day we're born, we're born into this body that is given a name, and we're told that is who we are. And as we grow up and we navigate the human experience, that identity gathers all these labels and things and opinions and ideas
Mhm.
and identities that make us separate and different. And
Right.
what's funny is this book wasn't always called My Name is Love. It had a different name after 6 months before publishing. And
Mhm.
we decided that the content of the book was far too powerful to carry the previous name, which was Popcorn in My Pocket.
Yeah.
And My Name is Love just felt right because
Yeah.
it's the only thing I can identify with that doesn't make us different
Mm.
or separate. If I identify with even a male, well, then I'm separate from females. If I identify as being Trinidadian, well, that creates separation between you as an American, or
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
not that these identities don't have their place, they do. But I feel like the world we live in is so overcome by identity that we allow it to define us. And the only thing I can safely allow to define myself is the desire to know, understand, and embody love.
Yeah. Yeah, because the separation and identity separates us, right? And that's what causes us
Yeah.
to have a lot of conflict. So, how would you define love? Let's take romantic love out of it because everybody, we all know what romantic love is,
Yeah.
looks like. So
Yeah.
love, right? How do I love my neighbor who is not so kind? Let me just put it that way. Not
Wow,
so nice, let's say.
you're getting straight into it,
Yeah,
Melissa.
because I love these
Yeah, I know you
conversations
asked
because
me about who I was, and I know you probably expected to get an answer of where I came from and how I grew up,
oh
but I
yeah,
guess we're
you
getting
can
straight
throw
into
those
it.
in too. You can throw those in our pocket. Yep.
Oh, I'm not.
So
Yeah, I'm not. You broke up a little bit. I lost you for a moment. Are you there?
I'm here. I hear you. Yep, you're
All
good.
right, cool.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to answer your first question. What does it mean to love?
Mhm.
In the book, there's a line that during the first draft of the book, it was probably the last line of the book, and I remember when I wrote it, I couldn't help but start crying, not because I was done, because I knew I was far from done, but because I was like, well, this is it. See, this is it. And Elaine says that to embody love is to see God in the eyes of every human being in all of creation. And then to be a mirror so that he can be in awe of his own existence.
Mm.
So to me, it's about seeing God in all of creation in the eyes of every human being and then acting accordingly. And, a lot of people, Melissa, when they hear love, they think flowers and rainbows, they think
Right.
butterflies and chocolate, they think
Right.
bunnies. And love is fierce. Love is courageous. Love is drawing boundaries. Love is standing up for what you believe in. Love is holding up a mirror and telling someone and showing someone the very last thing they want to hear, knowing that you could potentially lose them forever. That is love. I don't believe you can really love anyone or anything unless you're willing to lose them.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I think in society, I don't think you really understand. Love is a word we use a lot
Yes.
in a lot of ways. It's really versatile.
Mm-hmm.
But to really truly understand love,
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of us do, because you can be told of something,
Mm-hmm.
but because you're told of it, doesn't mean you understand it or you know it.
Right.
To really know and understand something, you can only do that through experience, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the greatest privileges in our world that is not spoken of often enough is the privilege of knowing what love is.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think many people in the world have that.
No.
So it's kind of like God, where we live, not to switch topic at all, but we live in a world where generationally, so much of us have been told of God, what God is, what God looks like, what God wants of us. But to be told of God and to know God, two different things.
Mm-hmm. So anybody
Yeah.
who's listening,
I could talk a lot. So
yeah, no, that's good. I want you to talk a lot. So for those
Yeah.
listening who is struggling, because I agree with you, love,
Yeah.
the way we have been taught and we understand, is very conditional, meaning I will love you if you live up to my expectation of you in my life. I love you then.
Yeah.
But I don't
That's
love
a business
you.
deal.
Yeah, right. I don't love you if you hurt me. I don't love you if you're cruel. I don't love you if you have a different politics than I do. I don't love you if your skin is a different color than mine, right? So that's how most of us are taught love. And I think even I don't have children personally, but I know that from friends and others that even parents love their children conditionally. I love you if you grow up to be what my idea is for you to be, right? But if you don't, then there's a problem. So how do we, for those of us that are open and want to learn, how do we shift that? How do we change that? How do we learn to love in a different way than we've been taught?
Yeah. Well, this convo is so on point, Melissa, and I'm kind of glad we're not on video, because you might see me getting really emotional. You might even hear it. Because right now in my life, I am navigating a situation that has caused me some pain, right? Some hurt. And it's important. First, I want to note that for people listening, hurt and anger are two different things. So because someone hurts you or causes you pain, doesn't mean you have to get angry.
Right.
It means you're hurt, right? They're two different things.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, if we can move beyond the identity of physical body, I'm not going to go too far off the tangent here, but
okay.
If I can understand that I am not my physical body, then I know that Melissa is not her physical body.
Right.
And then I begin to recognize that within every physical body is a seed of God. It's a spark of God that has been conditioned by its experiences and its environment, and everything that up until that point has shaped that body. But beyond that body is an element of God. It's an element of myself, right? So it's about realizing that someone's words, actions, and thoughts are not who they are. That is just their conditioning. And we can condemn someone's actions, words, and thoughts. We could condemn someone's conditioning, but still love them.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, too, Melissa, is that when we're faced with whoever it is, to me, I'm going to say, if I'm faced with someone I love dearly, and that person does something so hateful to me, you know, I have a choice, whether it be someone I love or a stranger. I can condemn that person and judge them and create all this anger and resentment. That's not going to change them.
No.
That's not going to impact the way they live their lives.
No.
That's not going to really help them reprogram or recondition, right? So the very first thing, wow, I feel like I'm giving myself advice right now. The very first thing we need to do, if we want to help someone reprogram or recondition, is to make them feel safe, seen, understood, and loved. And when we do that, and we can have someone understand that we see them, and we appreciate them and acknowledge them, then we can help them reprogram or recondition. But you can't have someone reprogram and recondition if you're coming at them with fire and brimstone all the time.
Right. Right. Now,
Does that
what if
make
that
sense?
person, yes, that makes perfect sense. But what if that person doesn't want your help and they have to go through their own journey? What do we need to do? Because you're not saying, and I know you're not saying, that we need to accept cruel behavior from somebody else because we're trying to be more loving of ourselves. Because like you said, love is also drawing boundaries, right? So if somebody is beating me, you know what I mean? I don't need to be in that relationship with them anymore. So I have to draw a boundary. So is it we need to also love ourselves? Yes, love ourselves first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up too, right? Now, here's the reality. Life wasn't meant to be flowers and rainbows.
No.
Human experience is meant to be growth and transformation.
Yes.
Right? So put it this way, Melissa, if I on some level were to do something that hurt you, and you kept feeding me flowers and rainbows and saying that you love me, that's not actually love, because you're not showing me what I need to grow.
Right.
Maybe what I need to really grow and transform is for you to walk away from me, and I risk losing you forever.
Yeah.
That would be real love. Because if you keep enabling my behavior and allowing me to harm you, all you're doing is keeping me close because you're afraid of losing me.
Right.
So your love, what you're describing as love, is a self-saving love. It's because I might provide you security or a sense of comfort or a home or a roof. You keep me close and you're afraid to tell me and show me things that I don't want to hear. And of course, you also have to love yourself first. Because you can't see and acknowledge God in anyone else unless you acknowledge it in yourself.
Right.
You know, and this is why I mentioned earlier, Melissa, you can't love someone unless you're willing to lose them. Because then your whole relationship is going to be pandering to the fact that you want to keep them in your life close.
Yes.
And what that leads to is manipulation and bribing, emotional corruption. And you're not really ever going to tell that person how you feel or what they need to facilitate their growth and transformation.
Right. Right. That's so
true.
So
love is fierce. Yeah, love is fierce. And sometimes love is saying no. And sometimes love is telling the person you really love the one thing you know they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And you know you might lose them forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what love requires sometimes. you know?
I so agree. And I can see it now so much clearer after some experiences. Like you said, you have to go through certain experiences that transform you so that when you look
Yeah,
back, you can say, oh, now I understand. Now I understand why I went through what I needed to go through so that I could show that I do love myself and I do love you to let you go on your own journey, wherever that leads
yeah,
you. And it may lead you into a lot of pain, but that is your journey, not mine.
yeah. And sometimes it's like I also I talk about in the book. I refer to what I call a voice of the mind and the voice of the heart, and the heart
Mm-hmm.
being the receiver to God's resonance, to God's frequency. And sometimes we think, oh, great, we're going to listen to this guidance of the voice of the heart, and everything's going to be perfect and nice, and life is going to be beautiful and pleasant. And sometimes God and the heart will lead you onto a battlefield.
Right.
It will lead you into a dungeon, because sometimes that is what we need to experience to understand, to grow, to learn, to even glimpse what love really is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah,
So, how, for anybody who's listening right now who may be struggling,
yeah,
how do they see God in themselves and God in others so that they cannot plug into the emotional story of the anger and the resentment and the rage and look at it, because like anything, we need practice, right? We don't just, these things don't just
yeah.
come naturally. So we need practice. So what would you recommend somebody who's maybe going through something with somebody and wants to be able to follow what you're talking about?
Wow, as in a practice for them to do.
Yeah.
My yeah, my. There's so many practices, Melissa,
Mm-hmm.
that can help facilitate this kind of journey. But I'm gonna speak to two things. The main thing is, I think anything that quiets the mind
Mm-hmm.
or helps us cultivate this relationship with our mind to really see what's coming up for us. It lessens the hold on our identity, of our mind on us, right? So
Mm-hmm.
again, I won't go too far off, but I will bring it back full circle.
Okay.
Our physical body is who we think we are a lot of the time.
Right.
My body is called Troy.
Mm-hmm.
If I allow my conditioning to be that I am my body, this is who I am, and I don't ever question that. That lives in the mind, right? It's what we would call our ego. Some might call it our
Yes.
ego, right?
Yes.
Good. Now, here's the thing. Your physical body has one certainty, and that is death.
Right.
And
It's
your
true.
mind knows that.
Mm-hmm.
So your mind, the conditioning of your mind is one that is constantly on defensive.
Right.
It's constantly looking out for threats. It's looking out for harm, and it perceives almost everything as a threat. Anything that
Yes.
makes us uncomfortable, it perceives as a threat.
True.
And that becomes our conditioning. And there's so many people in our world that have no relationship to their minds. They can't even sit alone in a room with their mind because it's so scary.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is a massive issue. Imagine that your mind is the one thing you can't escape. And we live in a world where a majority of people, I would even say maybe 90% of people on the planet, cannot even sit in a room alone with themselves. They are scared
Yeah.
of their minds
Yeah.
because the mind has this hold on them. So I would explain it like this. The more you cultivate a relationship with your mind, it's like for a lot of people, the mind is really overactive. The mind screams, it shouts, it's on constant constantly created anxiety, worry, stress, depression, all these narratives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think of your mind like a lover, like an eternal partner. If you want to use in marriage, use it with marriage, right? But there's no separation and divorce. It's you and your mind for the rest of your life.
Right.
Now, for any relationship to be holistic, compassionate, loving, and understanding, there must be quality time. That's how you get to know your partner. So I like to describe the relationship with the mind as the same. The less you start to spend time, the more you start to spend time with your mind and start to question and understand, why do I feel this way? Why is this coming up? And just sit with your mind and your thoughts, the less it has to scream and shout at you. The less it has to scream and shout at you because you're cultivating a relationship, is the more you can now start to hear the frequency of God, frequency of your heart, which tells you you are not your body, that we are all conditioning. And once we start, even begin to glimpse that, then we no longer take things as personal. Because if I were to do something, if you, Melissa, were to do something to me, I know not to take it personally, because that is just your conditioning. You're doing it best you can at this time in your life with what you're carrying, and I just happen to be in your way.
Okay.
I just happen to be part of your curriculum. But I honestly believe, they have this teaching that says, I think it's Maya Angelou. She says, if someone knows better, they'll do better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that's true to an extent, but there's also part of that hasn't been said. And that's that if somebody knows better, they will do better. If they aren't doing better, it's because they haven't been taught, they haven't been shown, or they don't know any better. However, even if I know better, sometimes depending on what I'm navigating in my life and the pain and suffering and the weight I am carrying at that point in time, even though I know better, I might not be able to do better.
That is so true. That is so true. We're going to take our break. Before you finish, let's take our break here because this is really important and I want to get into this even more. So we have to take our commercial break. So let's do that now and we'll talk when we get back. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Everyone has a story. I have a story. You have a story. We all have a story. As I see it, you have three choices. Allow your story to define you, use it to excuse you, or utilize it as a method to empower you. It's your life. You have the power. You choose. Rewrite your story on finduniquelyyou.com.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on Om Times Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives. Hi, everybody, and welcome back. I'm speaking with author Troy Hadeed, and we're talking about love, really, and what the real meaning of love is. And Troy, before the break, you were talking about, and this is so true, because just looking at my own, and I was thinking during the personal break, looking at my own life, I know so much better now. You know, obviously, we're all growth and progress. We're always constantly transforming and growing. But I know so much better now than I did, let's say, even 5 years ago. But I can still find myself getting triggered, right? Like, I know this.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying to me. But there's certain people that are triggers in my life and can still trigger me. And I know they're my greatest teachers.
Yeah.
Because that's
So
so even though we know better, depending on what's going on, and if I'm very stressed out and I have a lot on my plate and I'm doing a million things at once and whatever's going on, with me, someone can say or do something and I feel my anger just go whoosh, like rise up. Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna reverse the roles a little bit and speak to that first.
Okay.
Which is that if I know I am in any kind of relationship or interacting with someone that reacts to me in a certain way, and they I know they know better.
Yeah.
Like I know they know better. Then my first response should not be an attack to them.
Right.
It should be like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like what's really going on? Are you okay? It's like a workplace. If you have an employee at work, in an employee environment, in a work environment that is people centered and not profit centered, and I have an employee at work that is not performing and I know they can do better. My first response should not be coming down on them. Right. It should be coming to them and being like, yo, are you okay? Like, what's going on? Like, how can I help? How can I support you, right? It's the same thing in real life. Is that if we know someone knows better and we see that how they're showing up is not aligned with what they stand for or their knowledge of the world and life, we can ask them, yo, are you okay? Like, are you on it? How can I help? What's going on? This isn't normally you, right?
Right.
And now I'm going to go back to the role of if, like you mentioned, if I know I know better, and I get triggered or whatever it is. I have this analogy I love to use, which is a curriculum of life. It's like life is a school, right? Not a new analogy. Imagine that every individual has a very specific curriculum to walk.
Yes.
And that we are all part of one another's curriculum. If you are in my life, even for the briefest moment, that means you are part of my curriculum, right? And let me put it this way: if you're in my life, Melissa, and you're part of my curriculum, And like many times in my life, I show up in a way in which I am ashamed of. And I look back on that and I say, oh my gosh, I knew better. What the hell did I do? I knew better than to do that. I imagine that sometimes it's almost like we're puppets to God's brilliance. And God is setting us up. He's manipulating us sometimes to create and supply a curriculum where maybe in that instance, I get to learn how to deal with shame and guilt, or you get to learn how to deal with compassion, forgiveness, empathy. So it's almost like every experience we have, every relationship we have is part of our curriculum and someone else's curriculum.
Right.
And so that's one aspect of it for me is I don't come down too hard on myself because I am like, all right, I did my best. That's the reality.
Right.
Like I commit to love every single day. I commit to being a positive influence on the people around me every single day. If I do or say something or show up in a way that I know was out of alignment or I am ashamed of, I acknowledge it, I see it, I take accountability, I apologize if necessary, and I try to do better.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important for us to remember too that if we had it all figured out, we would not be here.
No, we wouldn't.
No,
Right?
we wouldn't.
We wouldn't. I want to ask
And,
you because I'm really interested in. You said something in your things that you talk about in when you get interviewed, and since I talk about manifestation, I want to know what the inconvenient truth of manifestation and prayer is from your perspective.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I find that so fascinating. So I want to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. Oh, good question. When I heard you talk about your book, I was like, I wonder if she's going to bring that up.
Oh, yeah.
So
I want to bring that up.
Inconvenient truth, Melissa, is this. Again, and entertain me. I'm not going too far off the topic. I once came to understand that the word spirit, like Holy Spirit, it comes from the Latin word spiritus, and it means to breathe. And through my yoga practice and my practice in general and understanding, I've come to really believe that there is a divine agency in the air we breathe. It's the only thing that connects all of us.
Right.
It's the only thing that makes us all the same, that has no boundaries or labels, that is not associated with identity or form. It's the air we breathe. So I've come to view that and understand that there is some divine agency in that. And that has affected my yoga practice in the sense that I began to view and understand that my yoga practice was a form of prayer. And my yoga practice became very intimate, very slow. And as I began to practice in that way, I realized that in my practice, I felt so close to Spirit, so close to God. But then I thought to myself, I said, well, hold on. I breathe 27,000 times a day on average. As like God is constantly moving in and out of me. And I realized, I was like, wow, I am a living embodiment of prayer. Prayer is not something I do in the morning, or I do in the afternoon, or I do when I go to church, temple, or mosque, or when I hold a ritual. Like, I am a living embodiment of prayer. Now, manifestation to me, Melissa, is a New Age word for prayer. It's been around for a long time. Manifestation, a lot of people, I think, see as this New Age spiritual new thing. It's not new.
Yeah. No.
It's eons old, right? And it points to this. Every word, action, and thought changes and shifts your reality.
Yes.
Everyone.
Yes.
The inconvenient truth is this, that people love to say, oh, I'm going to sit down and do a manifestation ritual in the morning or manifestation meditation in the evening. But what about all the space in between?
Right.
Right. So to understand our real power of every word, action, and thought, that is inconvenient because it comes with great responsibility.
It does.
It means that every single thing I do, every word, action, and thought is changing the world every single moment. I am manifesting constantly.
Yeah.
So with that, that means that I have to bring so much more intention and awareness to the way I live my life.
Absolutely.
Manifestation and prayer is not something we do when we journal or when we write or when we pray. It's something we are living embodiments of that.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that carries a massive responsibility. And a lot of us aren't ready to acknowledge that just yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because what I have people do is fun. It's the light. It's the making the cards. It's the imagination. But when people come to me and say, well, I did this and I said, and this is just to put a visual spin on it and give it a creative edge. But the real manifestation comes from what are you thinking about after you created this little card that you sent me? Are you thinking you don't deserve it? Are you thinking it's never going to happen to you? Are you thinking of how you can't stand your life and you're so unhappy? And is that where your energy is? Is that where you're vibrating at? If that is, it doesn't matter how many vision boards you do, cards you make, affirmations you say. It's you have to catch yourself and your thoughts. And we don't realize, like you said, our brains, our minds, how many thoughts we are having in a day and how many of them are negative thoughts, are disempowering thoughts, I should say, are disempowering thoughts because we're so unconscious of our minds, are so unconscious.
Yeah.
So I love that you said that because that's the truth.
Yeah, and there's also, not everyone would agree with this, but to me, there's also an element of action.
Yes.
And it's like I can sit on a couch and try to mentally manifest $1 billion as long for my entire life. But
yes,
you have to take action. In the book, I explain it simply. I'm like, if I want my favorite pizza for dinner, I have to order it.
Of course.
I can't just try to will the pizza man to show up at my door with my favorite pizza. Maybe some of us can. I sure can't. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
That then you need to. It's like the universe, wants to co-conspire to create for us, but we need to engage.
Yes.
We can't just put our hands up and
action.
say.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Inspired action for sure. Well, hopefully what happens is once you connect to God, prayer, manifestation, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter, source, is that you feel like you want to take the action. You should feel the excitement of wanting to take that next action that's going to get you there.
Yeah.
Because there's an excitement behind it, at least for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, how dare we not try? I know we all have moments in our lives when we get down, and I was asked this once I was asked, do you get down, depressed, uninspired? Do you feel bummy? I was like, of course there are times. There are times when I want to walk away from the world and disappear, know? But then there's a voice in my head that goes, how dare you? With all that you've been given and all the opportunity you have and all the knowledge you have to share and the impact you can make on this world, how dare you just throw your hands up and walk away? And I feel like that is something I echo to myself so many times. How dare you not at least try? Just try. How dare you not try?
I like that. How
You
dare you
know?
not try? Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you, what do you think one of the biggest issues is that is plaguing humanity? What do you think are that we,
I mean,
are dealing with
Melissa,
right now?
I try not to be too esoteric and woo-woo, but I think the biggest problem plaguing our world is the issue of identity. It's the issue that we think we are separate, that we associate ourselves with our bodies. Because as long as I do that, everything becomes my land, my house, my people, my property, my money. And we start to create all this separation. And even if we have a we, a lot of the time that we is a collective we, so that we still creates a them.
Right.
So we've lost sight of the collective. We've lost sight of the fact that we are part of something so much bigger than ourselves. Yeah. And we've become so consumed by this individual sense of identity that we've forgotten that we are love, that we are God.
Yeah.
And that lives within everyone else. And if we can only begin to glimpse that again, that would solve so much of what's happening in our world.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can see that. Because if we really understood it even a little bit, how could we hurt other people? How could we hurt our planet? How could we cause harm, right? Right? Because if I'm harming you, I'm harming myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
if I'm
absolutely.
taking from you, I'm taking from me. Right? Right. And people don't really understand what that means. They can read the words and understand the sentence, but not what the implication of what that idea actually really means. That's what people have a hard time getting.
Yeah, and it's like in yoga we love to use this word Namaste. And it signifies, a lot of people love to throw it around, but to me, it means that God in me lives in God in you. Acknowledge that it's God in you. Can I see God in the eyes of every human being? Even a stranger, a homeless person, or the addict on the street. And if I can, how would that change my interaction? It doesn't mean, this is coming back full cycle. It doesn't mean I can't condemn their conditioning and their actions.
Right.
Right? But I need to understand that is not who they are. So I can still love someone and condemn everything, how they show up in the world, and still love them. And even if I see God in the eyes of someone, that doesn't mean I have to bring flowers and rainbows.
Right.
That means I can still be in conflict. I can still draw my boundaries. I can still stand up for what I believe in. I can still hold a mirror up and show that person what it is they need to see to grow and transform. But in doing that, I'm compassionate. I'm understanding. And I come from a place of love. There's a beautiful quote that I tattooed on my arm. I wish I found it 20 years ago. But it says, I have not come to teach, I have come to love. And love will teach.
And
that
is beautiful.
I think, and I asked ChatGPT who wrote it, and I did so much research. And no one really knows. I keep getting different authors, so I think I have to say it as an unknown author. Yeah.
So, Troy, how are you in your journey? Like, where did you come? I didn't touch on your background, but where did you come from? Were you always this in touch and intuitive and as a child, or like that you got to where you are now? And how do you feel you are in your journey with being, living what you're speaking, I should say?
Yeah. Well, I try my very best, Melissa, every day. I try my very best to live the things I teach and I speak of, but I make it very clear that I am human and it's a work in progress. And I do and say things all the time. I'm like, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
But it's a constant work in progress. I'm from Trinidad, to answer maybe your first question, and I've been born here, I've grown up here. I've had really amazing and supportive friends and family that even while they don't quite understand all the time or agree with my perspectives and views, have always given me love and support.
Oh, good.
So I've always felt that. And that has had a huge impact on me. From a young age, I think, at 10 years old, I wrote a letter to the editor of our national newspaper, and this was during the Gulf War. And that letter was pleading for an end to war and fighting and for people to just live in peace, And a copy of that letter, it's not greatly written, I was 10, but a copy of that letter, with the help of my mom, I sent to Saddam Hussein, President Bush, Mikhail Gorbachev, and our Prime Minister at the time. And I often asked myself, at 10 years old, what in the world possessed me to want to do that? And I had really powerful influences as a child. One was Jesus. One was Jesus outside the context of religion. And I try to make that clear. When I speak of God and Jesus, I speak outside of the context of religion.
Yeah.
And Bob Marley and the Rastafarian movement had a huge impact on my life. Right? Now, so I often wonder, why did I write that letter at 10 years old? And right now, the only thing I could put my finger on is that I used to sit down and watch news with my dad on TV every night at 7 p.m. And so I was not in any way sheltered from what was happening in the rest of the world. And I think right now we have so much people that shelter their kids. And I have no kids, so I can't speak to them, and I won't tell anyone how to bring up their kids. But I think being exposed to what was happening outside of my bubble of privilege and safety, along with my influence of Rastafari and Bob Marley and Christ, it gave me almost a responsibility to at least try to make a difference.
Right.
To try to seek this something bigger, this something that is more inclusive. And at least try to I took that journey, I would say, from a young age,
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, Bob Marley was definitely prophetized in his music. So I can see. It's a shame we lost him so young, but I guess his job here was finished and he had other things to do, right? That is so cool.
He's still so very much alive, huh? It's like,
oh God, I know. My nephew who is autistic. I have an autistic nephew, and he can't. He verbalizes, but he can't speak. But one of his favorite song is Bob Marley. He loves Bob Marley, so we put Bob Marley on. He dances. He connects to the music, and it's so beautiful to see. So I love that. So Troy, we only have a couple of minutes. If people want to connect with you, or do you are you on a lot of shows, or they want to listen to you more, or tell them how they can find you and to get your book, of course.
Yeah, of course. Well, my book is on Amazon.com, and the audiobook comes out in end of August, September as well.
Congrats.
Thank you. They could also buy a book, of course, at any bookstore. They could, if they don't have it in stock, they could order it on Barnes & Noble. They could find me at troyhadeed.com, and they can also buy my book at troyhadeed.com. There's a shop link where I will have merchandise and clothing and that kind of stuff. And maybe I can even hook them up with a little discount through your radio show. Maybe you could talk about that and offer that in some some way.
Okay.
But I'm also really active on Instagram. It's my social media profile of choice.
Okay.
So I would, if anybody wants to reach out, troyhadeed.com or Instagram, I would love to hear from them.
Oh, okay. Great. Is there anything you want to leave us with? We have like a minute left before we didn't get to say.
Yeah, well, I'll just say this, Melissa. This comes to mind. I think a lot of listeners don't always recognize the work that goes into a radio show or a podcast. And I think, I don't think the host always get the credit they need. So I would like to tell you, thank you for giving me a platform and a voice and giving our listeners such beautiful content.
Oh, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, actually, today talking with you, Troy. Thank you so much for being here with me. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.